Okay, awesome. We are live. Get Resource with Summer and Dre every Friday at 12 p.m. You catch us live on YouTube or Facebook. We also have a Facebook group called Get Resource. You can join and see us live there as well. Like and subscribe and join the conversation. We are connected to whatever you put in terms of chats. If you don't get to your question or your comments, we'll get to them afterwards. And we always love to open up with our Get Resource with the question of what's alive in you?
Yeah, I'm going to flip it over to you first this time as a switcher up. What's
Oh.
alive in you, Dre?
What's alive in me is clarity, spaciousness today. Today, Fridays are quieter, so this allows me to get recalibrated to the important things. I really enjoyed our conversation last night. It moved some things for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm feeling eager because my needs for space are being met. Yeah. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
And by space, you mean space to think, to recalibrate, to instead of being so busy.
Yeah, yesterday I had like three big meetings, like
Oh.
back to back to back.
Yeah.
And when those days happen, I do feel discombobulated.
Yeah.
And need time to recalibrate. So it's always good for me to have like a day in the week where I don't have any meetings, calls booked.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just my time to recalibrate.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a relief for me to hear that.
Hey, recalibration's been coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's
Excellent.
alive in you, Summer?
I don't know. As you said that, I could see a calendar, maybe my calendar. I know our calendars are very different. Often yours is full of all different colored square blocks, and mine has a lot more space in it. So as you talk about having more space, it actually creates ease for me too. Yeah. What else is alive in me is some anticipation and excitement for this long weekend because, as you know, I'm picking up my daughter and we're going to have a few days with her and her beloved. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm so excited for that.
Yeah.
To share meals. She's going to cook steak for us to just explore and have fun and not work.
Yeah. More play.
More play. Yeah.
And inviting in that energy of like, I actually get more things done when I'm having fun and have more play.
Yes. I had a friend say, why would you wouldn't want to have your desk in your bedroom or your home or somewhere. And I see when people cross over stuff or they bleed what work is into their personal lives. But what if you thought you were never working? And I mean, having those elements of actual play and connecting with other people. But what if your work was play?
Yeah.
A livelihood instead of a busyness. That's really where I want to come from, because if I'm playing, if I don't feel like I'm working, if I think it's a weekend, if I get my days mixed up, I get a lot more done and I feel a lot more open rather than having this pressure in my head of thinking that I have to do something or that I'm expected to do something. It's kind of a paradigm shift and an anomaly and a very weird kind of thing. It's like people always believing they have to be some way and then realizing that they're already there. So I'm curious. Now we've got this in the Facebook group and people can ask questions and we can actually see them, which is awesome.
Yeah, I have all the tech set up on the side here.
Yay.
I'm the tech guru.
Andre's the tech guy of this place. So we were going to talk about, because we were talking about empathy and what that really is. It's not listening to understand or listening to respond. It's actually listening to be with. But if we take that a step further into the ideas of acceptance or of forgiveness, because that word's thrown around a lot. And I think forgiveness comes sometimes from a very maybe spiritual but slightly religious connotation where there's a bit of guilt in there, like forgive and forget, like you're supposed to do that. And how it's a great concept. I get the meaning of it for a lot of people. Like forgiveness is such an important thing, and hanging on to anger, there's always that saying, it's like a poison,
Hmm.
thinking you're giving to somebody else, but you're really taking it in yourself. All
Resentment.
the resentment, the anger, and so how is it that we um and I like how Marshall reframes it to a sense of mourning and grief over what wasn't life-giving, what was maybe um f- fracturing. um the word that most people use is trauma. I try to avoid it. um
Why do you avoid it?
Why do I avoid that word? I don't know, because it seems popular. And I never do what's popular. Um, because people are, I'm traumatized or I've had trauma. And I think sometimes it lends us to being in a victim mentality where we don't have a lot of empowerment or ownership over, okay, this was my nervous system. This is how my nervous system operates. This is an opportunity for me to learn how my body and its GPS works and how to really accept, honor, and trust the information that my body's taken in, not only in this life, but I believe we carry information and imprints through our soul, through our DNA of our families. And so I think we're a lot more empowered than um, maybe some of the beliefs, the theories lead us to believe.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So
So
bringing it back to
exactly.
acceptance and
Forgiveness.
yeah.
Circling it back. How do we accept and forgive? And maybe there's a different word for that.
Hmm. Yeah. And this is the realm of like our a month of empathy. Um, Diving deep into empathy, there's the words of acceptance and forgiveness being thrown around. And hey, Brooke, I see you. Thanks for the comments.
Hey, Brooke.
Appreciate you sharing what you're working on. Brooke is working on his trauma, by the way.
Yeah.
He did mention the word trauma.
Yeah.
So I find like there's a lot of teachings around. I just gotta accept. I gotta let go. I gotta surrender. I gotta forgive.
Mhm.
And my brain gets it. My mind gets it. Ah, right, forgiveness. Like it's not like condoning what they did. It's more of like accepting what has happened so that I can move on with my life. It's kind of like that poison pill. Am I holding on to resentment and anger, which only affects my well-being, right? Unless I'm projecting it and physically or mentally attacking this person. But most of it's on mine, right? So I get it. Okay, I gotta let that go. I gotta forgive and forget. Though, why is it so hard? Why do I still have the anger? Do I still have the resentment? Why do I still have that grief? Right? Um, it's because it hasn't been embodied. Um, I find there's a time frame for myself.
Hmm.
Enough time passes. I mean, there's a quote that says time is the healer. And if I stay true to it, I go to the gym. I go to the gym for my mind, for my mental, emotional, spiritual well-being. Then in time, I don't know when that time happens. There's an energetic shift, like, and it's really hard to pinpoint when that is versus like forcing it to happen or doing a forgiveness practice or following the 5 steps of acceptance, which is a mental exercise. So it's for me more of like it's a time thing for me. Like there's an element that needs to pass through where I've done enough inner work on myself to in a way like a wet towel, right? Wet towel's heavy, and you're telling me to be dry. I'll be dry, but I'm still wet and heavy. So it takes time to rinse and dry out that towel, and that water that's in the towel, I can liken it to my pain and my hurt. So have I done enough work on my pain and hurt so that the towel's light enough and dry enough for me to move on?
So you're not saying it's just time.
No, it's intentional time. right?
Hmm.
Am I doing my work to allow the emotions of anger, sadness, and grief to move through me, not just pushing it away? Well, I'll just enough time, enough time will pass, and I'm not doing any work around it. I'm not saying that. I'm saying with time and with doing the work, there'll come a point where there's an energetic shift. And my timing, if I do the work, is different than Brooke's timing,
Hmm.
different than your timing. So I can't
Hmm.
compare. The only thing that's in my control is, am I continuing to tend to soil my mind, my emotions, and my spiritual practice?
Okay, so that's the work, is the tending to the emotions, the spiritual practice, and I'm curious more about what that is. It reminds me of Joe Dispenza always talks about the addictions that we have, even
Mm.
if we've got resentment, anger, um, and it's like a poison that we take. But we talked about this last night in our class. There's some dopamine hits. There's some addictions to, when I'm angry, I feel self-righteous and it kind of feels good. I feel powerful in some way.
Yeah, it's
It's
intoxicating.
intoxicating.
Yeah.
Um, and I never really thought of as an addiction. And the funny thing about it is there's this false sense of bravado, or, oh, I'll just ignore them or get back at them, or I'll do something to undermine them, or whatever it is that people do sometimes when they're resentful of someone and have a bit of a revenge thing going on.
Mm.
Is this not true power? It's like a repetitive pattern that happens over and over and over again, and we're always disconnected from others. And addiction, root word, dictatorship, meaning we're giving away our power. And so when I think about that and I think, okay, oh, in this moment, I can be angry and resentful, and I can feel that surge of emotions and that energy in my body. And I can go, oh, do I want to choose those thoughts of blame and shame and anger? Or it's like a repetitive pattern. Do I want to choose something else? Do I want to choose a different reaction? And do I want to feel peace in my body instead? It's almost that simple,
Mm.
to choose the thoughts that make me feel at peace.
Mm.
Did this person deliberately mean to harm me? And I know there's some really confusing, we had some talks last night in our class about, you know, um, crimes, heinous crimes that we consider that people go to prison for. How do we even forgive at that level? How do we allow that to pass through us? And I know as a child, we had a family friend, and I don't think YouTube allows us to say what happens. They block that stuff out. Um, but as I breathe into my body and to what happened, and I acknowledge it to myself, I don't have to forgive and forget anything. I've remembered. And then compassion naturally enters my being. I don't have to try to do it. And I don't have to forget either.
Mm.
And so, like you said, not ignoring, not trying to think positive, not trying to forgive and forget, not just saying and giving words to something. It's about being with the energy, not reliving it in our head, but allowing it to pass through us, because our nervous system gets stuck. Like you said, all that heaviness enters that towel, and it's like we throw it in a corner and it stays heavy and wet, and then it starts to get mold and starts to rot instead. And that's where we can have trauma and triggers where, oh my gosh, it's like I'm right back at that place. Someone else has triggered me, and we don't have the ability to have that dry towel
Mm.
that allows us then just anything new that comes that is heavy or grief filled, we can't dry ourselves off with it anymore. It just adds to the stankness and
Mm.
the rotting in the corner, I guess, to use your metaphor.
Yeah. I find like there's layers of forgiveness and acceptance. It depends on the
Mm.
context and the situation and who's it with. Forgiving someone for like cutting me off is different than forgiving someone that killed my parents. Um, yeah, there's pieces of reflection for me, like, why am I so angry? And that's for me to look into, right? Like, if there's a, I would say if there's a reaction, if something happened and I'm reacted to it, it's like my stuff for me to look at. If it passes through me and I'm like, oh, great, I'm just a mirror, right? And we're just mirrors for each other. So I'm just noticing myself, where am I reactive? And that presents my work. And this idea of acceptance, forgiveness, I think about is like, there's two sides, right? And I'm so, wary about bypassing, because I can see how I can skip out on the work by using these strategies. And one, for example, is positive psychology and affirmations and this idea of like being in unity consciousness. And I can see myself being like up there
Yeah.
and kind of disassociating from reality and just say everything is light and love, right? Light and love. And I'm avoiding the work. I get how I can view a certain situation of like, yeah, you're a spirit. I see you, right? Though I can see how that can be powerful for my mental health to help me reframe a certain situations. It is a choice to choose peace. It is a choice for me to choose that I can look at this person as my brother and sister. It's always a choice, right? Though I can see myself as like a pendulum, it's so easy for me to play with the extremes. It's as if like I only know of the extreme. Let's go all in on this strategy. And what I've realized in life is it's like the middle path. How can I be in harmony with whatever situation is going on here? There's like no black and white solution. There's no one size fits all, because it's contextual and based on where I'm at right now. So where I'm going with this is like this extreme of like, okay, light and love, right? Well, how do I bring that essence into the middle path and view it from that place of loving witness? Like really embody this self-compassion and grace for myself as I make mistakes, as I
Well,
mess up.
it's your spirit, but also human. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still connected. Like I'm observing my humanness. Like there's an observer part of me that's looking at my human experience and the parts of myself, right? Rather than just being in my hyper rational part of myself that's rationalizing everything, numbing myself, and using reframing situations or being toxic positive, because my rational part is running the show. So, how do I discern if it's my rational part or is my observer of my parts of myself that's observing what's happening? And on the other pendulum swing is shadow work can be intoxicating. It can be quite addictive. And I can approach shadow work in a place of shame and judgment of myself and reinforce those patterns. For example, talk therapy. And I wonder why I go to therapy and wonder why I'm still stuck. I'm reliving this trauma or the story that's going on. Or even if I approach shadow work from a place of loving witness and I go deep into it, what I learn is life's not all about healing, right? Life is also life is about self-actualizing my purpose here on this planet, and that can involve healing. And I love to use this dichotomy that I learned from one of my teachers. There's growth and healing, and there's healing and growth. And shadow work, I always say, is kind of like the yin, the water energy, the unconscious. What counterbalances that is edge work, which is the masculine, which is the fire energy, the yang. So, what am I doing with this healing now? How am I expanding my edges, living outside my comfort zone, rewriting a new story, changing patterns, doing the opposite of what I've done before with what I've learned through that healing? So I can see how like the pendulum switching, right?
Yeah, you've lost me a little bit with some of the language. Um, maybe with the pendulum. Maybe take an example of a couple that we work with. or even honeymoon effect. Everything's great, everything's all loving, and then all of a sudden, oh, all we see is everything bad, and we end up arguing in toxic areas. How can we accept everything that's going on? I think was it Byron Katie says, "Loving what is." What an
Mm.
interesting concept. How can you love what is if someone's beating someone up on the side of the road? Um, Loving what is this concept of how can I be present? Because we're always trying to be somewhere where we're not. And I think that's the basics of everything is like you're saying, there's my shadow side, there's my light side, and somewhere in the middle, I'm always swinging from one side to the other. And how can I just be present with what is? Instead of going, oh, I'm going to try so hard to lose weight. It happens in people's lives in so many different ways. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to lose weight. Oh, I'll try this. I'll do this. I'll do this. And then eventually, because we're trying to force ourselves to do something based on a judgment that we have, we end up, oh, then I'm going to go and I'm going to binge eat, or I'm going to stop myself from drinking. And then we drink. So how can we just be present with, okay, what is this feeling in my body right now in this moment? And why do I keep trying to stop myself from doing something based on my thoughts about who I think I should be? Why can't I just be who I am in this moment?
Mm.
And sometimes it's too painful for people. We don't know how to breathe through what we're experiencing.
Mm.
We haven't been taught.
Mm.
But I mean, there must be other examples of those extremes, right? And even bipolar and the emotions that are so extreme.
Mm.
And I think as I've worked with a few people, they start to notice the judgments, actually,
Mm.
the mental thoughts that go through.
Yeah. Yeah. What's coming through for me is like, I mean, being present is a great focal point to come back to.
Mm.
It's very simple. It doesn't have to be super complicated. Because I can find myself when I really want to feel and I'm in the experience, I can go to the extreme.
The
I can
extreme of
anger,
oh,
of sadness,
mm-hmm.
of my emotions.
Mm-hmm.
I can let it take over me and be intoxicated by that. So how do I instead observe my emotions so that it doesn't take over me, right? And what reminds me is being present to them. Because when I'm present to my emotions, there's a part of me that's observing it. It's not really like fully in it because it's so easy. And I'm speaking from my experiences. Like if I feel anger, I could say, well, just feel your feelings, Dre. Like allow them to dissipate, and I can really feel it. Like I can just really dive deep into it. But am I really being productive with it? Am I affecting the people around me? Like it's kind of like unbridled self-expression, you know? Like I could wreck your nervous system, right? If I express my anger in a way that is not contained.
Well, I think this is the misconception, and I think this is where Marshall and nonviolent communication comes in, because he talks about how anger is psychological armor, how it's actually a cover up for other more vulnerable feelings. So I think when people are in anger, to stay in anger, you actually have to have some thoughts there about how justified you are to be in your anger. Because if you breathe into anger, you'll eventually breathe into something more vulnerable, which is usually sadness or grief. So it's actually impossible to stay in a self-righteous, angry place if you allow yourself to fully breathe into it, because
Yeah, so that's a distinction I want to make because I'm
mm-hmm,
speaking from my experience
mm-hmm,
where I've been in anger and rage
mm-hmm,
and I never reached that sadness
mm-hmm, yeah,
and I'm just tired
mm-hmm,
and I'm just activated and it repeats.
yep,
And I've also been in anger where it's let the sadness.
mm-hmm,
And that's the distinction I want to clarify because if I'm told to feel my feelings,
mm-hmm.
I could be okay. Let me do it then. I'll throw shit around, be super angry, whatever. Right?
Well, I would say that you're not then also observing the thoughts that you have while you're angry.
Yeah. So the presence, the
Mm-hmm.
observer,
Mm-hmm.
it's being contained. It's like I'm talking about being fully immersed in it, where I lose consciousness. It's kind of like being intoxicated by anger versus feeling it and having some conscious awareness of the needs, of the thoughts. Like you said, breathe into it. And I find that like maybe perhaps I'm being guided by someone, by being guided by you, I can get there.
Right.
Though if on my own, right, you tell me to breathe into it, what's gonna happen? Like maybe I'll regulate myself, but I might not be able to go anywhere. So what is the distinction, as I'm asking, between perhaps unhealthy forms of expression of anger, unhealthy forms of anger, and healthy forms of anger, if there is a distinction?
I think you may be talking about, sometimes we're unconscious, we're run by patterns, and we don't catch what we're thinking. I've seen people skip ahead from a very vulnerable feeling, overlay that with a thought, and then they're angry. And so uncovering the languor and feeling safe enough. I think there's a degree of safety for self when people start to learn how to be present to themselves, knowing that they're not going to be overtaken, like people with panic or anxiety attacks. Um, they breathe and they get into this attack, and then the thought thinks, oh, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. And there's thoughts that reoccur that then cause the reoccurring anger or the panic. But if and this is a learned skill for someone like me or whoever it is, can invite them and just be present with them without judgment, maybe placing a hand on their back, inviting them to breathe, someone else that knows that they're safe, that there's actually nothing wrong with them, that they're not judging them, because people in those vulnerable states of triggered states can feel what other people are thinking.
Yeah.
Then they're able to start I can be calm. This energy moves. All energy moves. Grief runs downhill to a more calmer, grounded space. Everything moves until we judge it, until we think. And I think a lot of it is about missing what we're thinking, what we've been told, and these habitual thoughts that we have, or these beliefs that we have, that if we're angry, we're a bad person. Oh, look at me. And then we get angrier based on the thoughts that we're having that we're not able to identify. And this is like what you said, when there's someone that's able to reflect back to your truth, there's a sense of relief that happens. Not someone that's judging you or analyzing you as you need anger management or something, but can reflect back what you're really feeling under that. Then you get to that sense of relief and knowing. Yeah, we got some comments there.
Yeah, some comments. Tracy says, same, I've been in anger where I'm pissed off because I need to justify myself and I picked a fight in order to cry. Picked a fight. I cannot rationalize while I'm in anger. Typically, I don't even think of my feelings or needs while I'm angry. Yeah, it's like, for me, I call it blind rage. I've been there before. And it's like I have no conscious awareness of my actions. That's when I start speeding or like slamming doors, stomping around, right? Violent, right? Chris says, perpetrating the anger is a choice of my experience. Repetitive thought loops, hot thoughts versus cool thoughts. I can perpetrate my anger by choice. It used to be a habit. Again, the addiction. Addiction to anger, yes, and adrenaline hits, and emotional fully, completely felt passes within 90 seconds.
Yeah, there's a life to that. The body can't run on that. That's like revving an engine. Eventually, it just explodes and it can't function. It gets too hot. It burns out. It has a breaker system in there. We have a breaker system in us. And I think over time, because our culture has been so violent and there's a lot of unconscious patterns, as people start to be able to accept, honor, and trust and acknowledge their own emotions without numbing them through substances or other behaviors, we start then to be able to catch them and identify them. It's a practice. Like you said, it's a spiritual practice, right? It's not like, oh, I'm going to be angry and then I'm not. It's this curiosity and this willingness to start observing myself and others in a new way, in a new loving way. And 12 steps. One of them is first acknowledging there's a higher reason, there's a higher purpose, there's a higher source. We don't have to do it alone. There's a higher consciousness that we're all a part of. And through our own body, we can experience that consciousness. And yeah, it takes some practice. And I think compassion from others that you can really see don't judge you, that are just being with you, is one of the quickest ways of disengaging from that addiction. Because as Bruce Alexander, the psychologist, said, the cure for addiction is not sobriety. It's connection. The feeling that you're not alone, that you're in this existence with others, because we're wired for it. And when we're connected, all our cylinders are firing optimally. I always go back to that scene in Avatar. Like, we're all meant to function together. And as we isolate ourselves, as we judge ourselves and judge others, there's this fractured sense of, and it's no wonder we're so angry. And so terribly sad to be so disconnected from life itself.
Yeah, anger is a beautiful thing. It's like the first level emotion.
It's very motivating.
Yeah, letting me know my needs aren't being met.
Yeah.
Yeah, it serves a purpose. And anger, they always say, anger is a way to set my boundaries. It's a way to indicate that I've been people pleasing. I've been not meeting my needs. I've been betraying myself. Anger towards myself or others. And it's intoxicating too. Anger is prevalent. Anger on the roads. Anger in sports. Violence. It's well accepted.
Yeah, hockey. I always say, yeah, it's a place where men are allowed to have every emotion possible, even anger. It's they're allowed to.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with anger. It's like anger's there. Like, how can we have a safe space for anger to exist in a way that is, assertive and not aggressive? It's respectful and not hostile and threatening. Yeah, and even exploring the deeper parts of rage as well. Like, how can that be channeled too? Yeah, I have those energies within me, and I remember going to spaces where I get to we call it primal recalibration, and where I have another man standing in front of me and I scream, right? I'll let it go, and this man's witnessing me around in a circle. And it's very cathartic, right? It's very cathartic, and I feel like, wow, I feel light after. I'm like, oh. And it's kind of like perhaps a reminder of me that perhaps I didn't self-clean myself. I built up that energy. It needs to go into a workout. I've always had an interest in martial arts and boxing and fighting, where I can channel that energy. I've also been in spaces where I allowed my anger to go through, and then I met with sadness. And then when I met with sadness, I cried, and I met the next piece of like the shame, and then shame for crying. And after the shame and just being with it, I started laughing. And then I was light and I was grateful. And I kind of circled around. Yeah. Yeah. So I would just want to share that, because I'm like, acceptance and forgiveness, what gets in the way of that is my anger. I'm still holding on to that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a first level emotion. We say anger is the bodyguard to sadness. How do I allow myself to move through those levels so that I can really get to an embodied level of acceptance and forgiveness, wherever the situation or person that I'm connected to in that moment?
It's a good question. What are people saying?
Yeah, Giselle says, yeah, we as human beings do not like pain. In fact, we will do whatever we can to avoid it. Yeah, there are many ways of avoiding. There are many ways of finding solutions to that pain. Yeah, when I'm allowed to feel, for sure, like I'm gonna numb. I'm upset at work. I put on a happy face, happy-go-lucky face. Where's it go? It's going somewhere. Chris says, to me, the true purpose of anger is to let me know that something needs to change in myself or my environment.
Yeah.
It gives me the courage and the strength and the energy to initiate the change.
Courage and the strength to initiate the change. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a forward-moving energy, isn't it?
It is.
Transmuted with force.
I think as we start to embody more of who we are authentically, our true nature, as it's been distorted by whatever family we come through, that we need less and less anger, maybe as rage, but have more assertion as we accept, honor, and trust who we truly are and our nature in the world. That we have this ability just to say, no, that doesn't resonate with me. And yes, that does. And I'm going to do what resonates with me. And less inclined to please someone else or do something that isn't in alignment with our nature. Go to a toxic work environment. We find ways to nurture ourselves in a more life-giving ways. We find new cultures, new people, new doorways, new possibilities that are always there because I notice it's only when I betray myself, when I have my ego involved, or I feel guilt, or I'm blaming, that I'm angry. If I'm in alignment with myself, if I act in a way that's life-giving to myself, why would I be angry? There is no anger. I'm just feeling life. And so going back to Chris, yeah, it is very motivating. We start to realize the ways that we have negated our own driving force, why we've repressed things, why we've punished ourselves, why we believe we need to live in punishment before we can do something positive. There's that strange saying, no pain, no gain. I think we live that out more than just in weightlifting. Yeah.
Yeah. Tim says here's apparently some of the most emotionally healthy people are on death row, having expressed themselves.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Interesting. I mean, it's interesting. It was coming to mind right now is a lot of people go off to war and they're given a free thing to go kill people. Yet when you come home and you do that, you go to jail. Like, what is that? Why does a government give people free will to kill people?
There's the hypocrisy, for sure.
Hypocrisy. They send people away to do their bidding on what they want based on some argument over oil and gas or resources.
Yeah, you have the right to kill because of these reasons, but you can't kill based on these reasons.
And we put you in jail and dehumanize you and demoralize you by doing it based on yeah.
And I'm curious, Summer, like in your life, like where have you gone in a journey of acceptance and forgiveness for those in your life, and where you've gone on a journey where it was hard to accept or forgive, and then there's a shift. And what was that shift?
Yeah. That's a good question. I'll ask you the same thing. I think for most of us, we end up being most angry and resentful to our parents because they're the ones that brought us up. They're the ones that were most in our field of experience. And so I was very angry and resentful for what I perceived were their shortcomings for a very, very long time. And I think the real shift came from me through the gift of my own daughter. who challenged me. And that just let me and allowed me to see and accept my own humanness, and therefore also my parents and everyone that I come in contact with, and that we are truly doing our best. We do what we're able to see. We're doing what we're able to feel, and if we could do better. And people have heard that all the time. And there's a difference between going, okay, I know they did their best, and then being able to relate to them and hear them and really relate to them without expecting something. Seeing people for who they are, because eventually we can no longer see our parents for who we thought they were when we were kids, as gods that knew everything. We have to start shifting to accepting that they are also human, and we relate to them as any other human as we relate to ourselves. And so then I also realized, as angry as I am at my parents, I'm also that angry about myself. As much anger as and Marsha will say that depression is the reward for being good. Depression is anger turned inwards. There's a difference between an outside aggression and internal aggression. Again, there's that pendulum swing, right? And I believe it's Viktor Frankl that'll say that there's always an inner tension. People always think there's this tensionless state, this comfortable state that we need to get to. But he says there's no such thing. There's always a tension between who a man is and who he is longing or growing into being. Just like the caterpillar that becomes the butterfly, there is this energy that propels someone forward in their life. And like you said, time, sometimes there's time. And allowing that divine timing to reveal who you are, but not just going, okay, God will take care of that, and a way of avoiding it. Taking the messages that allow you then to embody divine messages, to act on them, to be of service, to contribute in the world that makes you feel purposeful. And when we're taking those actions to be purposeful, we're only full of gratitude. There's no anger left. It's just grateful and gratitude for the experience of being in the body that allows us to feel all of these things. Yeah.
Yeah. Giselle says, yes, I was never able to express anger. I suffered with depression for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Tim's asks, do you believe there is a healthy expression of anger? If so, how?
Oh, is there a healthy expression of anger, and how? Yeah. In the Facebook group, we've got some sheets in there to download, the feelings and needs lists. A lot of people they're like mad, sad, bad, good, very limited vocabulary, whereas there's this symphony of things that go on in the body. And so under the category of anger, there's quite a few different symphonies that go on there. There's irritated, frustrated, irate, livid. And as we can start to tune into that symphony, we can also start to hear others as well, because we can start to be with them. We can start to be with ourselves. And once we're able to identify the flavor of anger as we start practicing, or we see others that can mirror that to us, we then recognize, oh, I'm irritated and annoyed because my body has a need for exercise today. Or, oh, I haven't had enough touch or time with someone that I love. And then I can make the choice to change that circumstance and feel empowered. I know my operating system and where the life-serving energy comes from. And so in the acknowledgement and being able to say, hey, I'm noticing, Dre, that I'm feeling really irritated and annoyed. Can we go to the gym tomorrow morning? My body would really appreciate that. And so a healthy expression of anger is the practice of having a vocabulary. So many of us have a greater vocabulary for blame, shame, name calling than we do for the own different energies that we have in our body.
Mm.
So honoring this conduit of energy and starting to get to know it
Mm.
and expressing the different
Yeah.
energies. Yeah.
Yeah, like anger, sadness, we call them unpleasant feelings or negatively charged feelings. They're all meant to be expressed, right? But if I'm uninitiated in expressing them, then it's easy for me to go to the extreme.
Mhm.
And what delineates between unhealthy versus healthy is if I'm doing harm. Am I harming the other? Am I harming myself? And another piece is containment. And what I've learned is I'd express anger where I'm like, I'm angry and I own it. Like you can feel my anger, but I'm not projecting it onto you,
Mhm.
right? If I were to project it onto you, I could do it physically. I can punch you. I could do it mentally, like really like get in your grill in your mind and just like say certain things to like throw you off, or emotionally by just putting that anger onto you, messing up your nervous system. But if I can contain it and you can see it in my face that perhaps a boundary is crossed, or perhaps something went sideways for me, and you can be with that. It's like, oh, you don't need to fix me. It's as if like I have it under control, but I'm just expressing it. So a lot of the stuff I do in men's work is like the healthy expression of emotion, but where men can witness it and not having to fix or give advice or comfort. It's a witness of like this man is just expressing his emotional state, and that's okay. That's his experience.
Yeah. There's a very much of a difference between the projection of something and the ownership of something. I feel
Mhm.
angry. Not you made me feel angry. And that's a mistake that we often make. To be able to come back to our own experience frees us. And it frees everyone around us. And it allows us to connect.
Mm. Yeah.
Connect to ourselves. And then it also allows others to be able to be given the freedom to do the same thing.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
It creates an opening for connection, like you said, that relatability,
Yeah.
and that you're able to see the humanness in me. And that through my expression of vulnerability, openness, it also allows you to see your humanity.
Yeah. And here's the neat thing, because you've got a body field, the EKGs, the MRIs, also the retinal and cardiograms. There's 3 electromagnetic fields in our bodies. They emit signals, and people can tell when people's heart energies in their minds. It's called lack of coherence in heart math. And as we accept, honor, and trust what is, because if we're trying to hide something, people can feel it. It feels a bit suspicious and unsafe. But as we can just acknowledge whatever it is we are feeling, and the other person can accept, okay, I hear that you're feeling angry right now, without judging it or trying to fix it or do something with it. Something happens because all electromagnetic fields interact with and influence something else. And so Rumi has this saying, beyond the ideas of right and wrongdoing, there's a field, and I'll meet you there. It's not a field of flowers, it's the field between people. And so, as someone can say they're angry and they own it, they're not telling me that I have to do something about it. And I can just be with this is going back to the empathy piece. Oh, you're angry.
Mm-hmm.
There's this space that happens that allows it to just shift. It's as if, oh, I'm accepting my humanness and there's another person here with me. Oh, okay. Now what? Now there's something different that's come in because emotions shift every couple of seconds if we allow them to, unless we judge them. And then we find that we're cycling through the addiction piece of it.
Yeah, what comes to mind for me is like safe space holding. Like I can imagine myself expressing anger and someone just present with me, not judging it, not trying to fix me, and that anger moves on its own, and in a way we're co-regulating each other. Like I'm boring your nervous system, and I find it more helpful than just doing it on my own because I'm wired to co-regulate. I'm wired to be in connection with you, and it's such a gift for someone to be in presence of my emotion, to allow that to move in a safe way, and I gain insights from that. And also piece to like healthy forms of anger is still this conscious awareness of that I'm still here. Like I'm not blinded, I'm not intoxicated, I'm not taking over by my saboteurs. And having that conscious awareness, I have the capacity to gain the insight through my anger as I process it. I get connected to needs. These the reason why I'm angry is because of the story I've been telling myself. Versus just like and then I can't see, right, and then I'm like, what happened? What did I do? Some comments here. Chris says, I think there is a healthy expression of anger. For me, though, I'm mindful of not blasting the other human with my anger. I had a sponsor say to me, all anger is an attempt to make someone feel guilty.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Try to get them to do what you want to do, maybe some kind of manipulation in there, perhaps.
Perhaps the unevolved anger, if I were to judge. If I evolve my anger, it's actually communication. It's clarity. To let you know where my boundaries are. To let you know what my needs are. Because my intent is not to make you feel guilty, but again, I can't control how you feel too.
Yeah.
Of how you receive it.
Yeah.
Christine says some words of anger are softer than others on the feeling sheet. You're right. That's so helpful. And the feeling sheet's amazing. Join or in the Facebook group Get Re-Sourced. There's a feelings inventory, and underneath that anger you mentioned before are different ones.
Yeah, a little irritated, annoyed, irate, livid, incensed. Yeah, there's different feeling levels. Some are softer, some are a little harder. Yeah.
Giselle says, understanding what that anger and what flavor allows me to take the blindness out of the term blind anger.
Yeah. Interesting. Being able to really tune into yourself. Is it A or is it A minor?
Yeah, the frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting to know oneself. Starting to tune in, literally tune in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tune into the inner symphony that's going on.
Yeah, instead of tune out, because we've been taught to tune out.
Like really
check out.
Music, right? You got the somber and it builds up.
Yeah.
Hey, right? Because music makes such a big deal in movies, right? Like
dramatic
scenes, the music adds so much for horror scenes or comedic scenes.
We love it in movies, but not in our own body.
It affects my emotions, right? Preparing me for that scene.
It does.
Tim says, when it does become abusive, probably refers to anger, I'm learning to read others within their boundaries and not selfishly act on my emotions that can be dealt with on my own. Conflict can be irreversible. Yeah.
Conflict can be irreversible? Is that what we said?
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I'm going to challenge you on that one. I've not seen that to be true. Conflict is not irreversible. I've seen it in so many ways, with my own family, my own daughter, within myself. In fact, the further we go and the darker it becomes, the easier it becomes to shift it. There are judgments, there's estrangements, there's conflicts, but there's a saying, the greater the rupture, the greater the repair possible. And I've seen it, and it's totally possible. It takes a shift of a paradigm, this paradigm of feelings and needs, rather than judgment, blame, shame, the model of the past, when we can be with ourselves and therefore others, we see the humanity in them, and then we're connected. And it's actually, I've seen some of the most difficult conflicts, mediated some of them. And it shocks me how quickly it can come about, as long as we're not speaking from our head and our judgments. When we can get into the field, when we can get into the feeling, because we're all empaths and we can feel each other and we allow each other to feel each other, it shifts everything so fast. It is profound.
But there are times where I drop the ball.
I'm
human.
Yeah.
I say the wrong things. I let my anger take a hold of me. And I say things I regret later. Here's the thing. What I say, what I do is not irreversible. It happened. It's imprinted onto Summer. It's affected her. It's opened a wound or deepened the wound. And one example is there's a time where we were both kind of elevated and I used your daughter against you. I weaponized your daughter against you.
You did, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that only escalated the situation. It got even worse, right? So here's the thing. I can avoid it. I mean, pretend it didn't happen. Pretend that I didn't say that. Though it happened, it affects our relationship. And if it's not tended to, it grows, it festers. And because I'm not aware of it, I might use it again and further separating us. And that wound is opened. The what can I do is to go back to Summer and own that. Own that. Yes, I was aware that I weaponized your daughter against you because of this and this and this and this. And this is how it made you. And I totally justify, or not justify, but it made sense to why you responded the way you did. And that made me realize that that is over the bounds. Right? There's certain agreements. I'm like, that is a not to go over that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It only festers when someone can't come back, and it's never too late to come back and say, hey, I see myself. I see what I did. That there's no imprints. There's no lasting festering of any kind. And I think this, as we give people grace, is there for you?
Well, it depends if I'm not working on it, if I'm avoiding it. Like, what do you talk in terms of like lasting, festering?
Well, like you said, you used my daughter against me. I don't feel that's even in the field anymore. I'm like, meh, it doesn't even like, I'm not afraid of it. I'm not looking out for it.
What if I didn't own it?
Well, that's exactly it. If you didn't own it, it would still be sitting there and likely would have happened again.
Yeah.
Because it cleaned that mess up by owning it. Yeah.
And that's part of the repair.
Yeah.
Right. It's how quickly can we get back into reconnection? That's the conflict repair cycle.
Yeah. And that's what we haven't been taught. That's why there's festering conflicts, is because there's always connection, disconnection, and reconnection. Yes. But so many of us don't know how to reconnect because we don't understand why we're disconnected in the first place. Mm-hmm. But once we understand that, it becomes simpler, and we start to get what they call, what's it called? Secure attachment.
Yeah. Going through a hard time and coming out the other side, okay, over
and over again.
So it becomes predictable. Just like when we get heated and I leave before Summer's like, chasing after me. Now, I come back. And so she doesn't need to. She has trust that I'll come back.
Yeah.
I'll come back.
Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm. Chris here commented, in spousal violence groups, they teach to take space for at least 45 to 60 minutes to allow the adrenaline to metabolize and be reabsorbed. That's at the deep anger.
Right.
Because I'm so elevated, right? If I'm at that level, like, oh man, like it's fight or flight.
There are hormones and things that run through the body. So
the way I think.
Yeah.
The way I interpret things.
Yeah. There needs to be space.
Yeah. Space is important. Taking breaks is important.
Yeah. Asking for them. There's some Maybe we'll talk about that next week, hey?
Yeah,
About
yeah.
how to
How
do
to
that in the
take breaks.
don't just walk away.
Yeah, don't just walk away and not take breaks. Yeah,
No.
breaks are needed when they are needed. Yeah.
It's for the
Um,
nervous system.
mhm.
Yeah, it's just like running your car batteries on high and it gets overheated. You got to unplug it and let it cool down. We're the same way.
Mm, yeah. So acceptance and forgiveness and tying it back there, looks like we went down the path of anger, right?
Well, I
And
think that's a lot of what people have to accept and give forgiveness for is that people get angry and
mhm,
sometimes it looks ugly.
yeah,
Yeah. And can we let go of the okay, you were ugly. Do we want to focus on that and tell people they have to do something different and focus on that they did it? Or do we allow them the grace and then focus on something else? Because then it's not in the field.
yeah,
It's not overlooking it. Like you said, people have to come back and take ownership of their language, what they did, what their behavior was. And if people do that, that means that they're willing to mourn their own actions, that they regret it. Right? Oh, I'm sorry. No, that they're able to feel what that was.
yeah. That's the embodiment piece because I can intellectualize anything. I can read any book on forgiveness and acceptance, and I got it. But when the time comes and I'm being tested, right? Um, that's where it moves into more of like, can I really put myself in the other person's shoes? And when we get down to the work of Marshall Rosenberg, feelings and needs, and speaking at that level, it gives me the opportunity to connect with your humanity, despite what you did. Because he says every action, every attempt, every judgment, every criticism, anger is an expression, a tragic expression of unmet need. And we can go down to the level of rapists and murderers and molesters and all that, that they're trying to meet a need doing what they did. And it's hard to fathom because of the judgments we have on those people or on the behavior, right? That we associate. But for me to really get there, it's not intellectualizing it, but
Well, lots of engagement, hey?